psychologist with 20 years of experience helping individuals and groups enhance well-being, resilience, and connection. Drawing from positive psychology, mindfulness, and behavioral science, he empowers people to flourish in meaningful, sustainable ways. In his private practice, he works with individuals, couples, and groups to cultivate intentional, thriving lives. So welcome, Jesse.
Thanks so much for that introduction. It's an honor and a joy to be here with you all this morning. Just give me 1 second to share my screen and the slides, and we will get started. I guess I need to do this. Okay. It's a joy to be with everybody this morning, and I've been able to be a part of the Jewish for Good community for going on 11 years now. So it's nice to be able to give this talk today and to contribute in a new way. My daughter went through the Jewish day school here from age 2 to fifth grade, and we've done camps here and just been active members of the community. And it's nice to be able to talk to you today and be with you in a new context. So, just a little bit about me. I am an industrial organizational psychologist, which by training means that I help workplaces improve. However, like many things in life, there's been a lot of transitions, and I actually refer to myself as a positive psychologist now because for the last 15 years, even though I was working in a workplace, I was essentially implementing positive psychology approaches to help people flourish at work and in their lives. And I've opened up a private practice to do this, and I find the work to be very meaningful. And we'll get into more of what that looks like, and we'll give you some hands-on experience with some of the exercises I work with people on as we go forward today. I'm also a Duke trained health and well-being coach, and I just feel very passionate about helping people apply what psychological science has found to help us live flourishing, meaningful lives. And so the difference between me and a clinical psychologist is that I don't diagnose or treat mental health conditions. What I do is I help people apply positive psychology strategies that psychological science has found are what we need to do to be able to lead meaningful lives. And I help people apply them in their life, such as things like gratitude, mindfulness, awe, a host of strategies like that. And you're going to get hands-on experience with some of them as we move through the session today. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to email me or check out my website. So as we go through the session today, it will be a mix of some reflective exercises and then some sharing. So I just ask that you have something to write with and on in order to do the exercises. Now you may want to do it on your computer. That's fine. It could be on a tablet, it could be on pen and paper, journal, however you like to write and however it's going to work best. But I do ask that you have some way of writing. So, well-being, it's important through our whole life. And when I say well-being, what I'm referring to is the perception that we judge our lives positively. So it's a very general um, description. And that when we think about how we're living, that we would again judge it to be positively. And that will look different at different stages of our life. And aging, brings a lot of change and transition, and life looks different than it did when we were younger. Um, the benefits, though, are that it also brings a lot of depth, meaning, and wisdom. And what I work with people on in terms of well-being is that we all have what's called a negativity bias. And it means that we tend to look more on the negative about things. We tend to be a little bit more cynical. And this can really limit our capacity. It limits our ability to be resilient, to have connections with others, to be open-minded. It's a natural thing that we all have. It's essentially innate to us as humans. But through doing positive psychology exercises, we can actually rewire our brains to be more open-minded, grounded, and calm. And there's a term called neuroplasticity, which basically means that you are able to change the neural connectivity of your brain. So we all have our sort of default patterns and default reactions. And by doing the work that I do with people, we're able to actually rewire people's minds so that they look at things differently, they feel more grounded, they respond to what comes up in life rather than react through default patterns. And the other thing I want to mention is that um, when we talk about well-being, there's really three different buckets that impact our well-being. The first is genetic. So we all have a genetic predisposition to having a certain level of well-being. It's like we all have genetic predispositions to, many physical ailments. This is the same thing. Um, that accounts for about 50% of our well-being. 10% of our well-being is accounted for by life circumstances. So I like to joke with people, people think if I get married, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. Um, my wife would probably tell you that's not the case. We've been married for 16 years, and the research shows after 2 to 3 years, you revert back to your baseline of how you were feeling before you got married. So circumstances have an impact, but it's not that much. I think that we as a society spend too much time focused on these circumstances, and we're getting very little long-term value from them. The bucket that I work in is the 40%, which is around mindset, behaviors, how we look at the world, how we respond to the world. And so that's what the exercises that I work with people on help to shape their brains and then drive new behaviors and get different results than what we may have been getting just by, how we normally have been living. So well-being is really about meeting life as it is and doing it in a way where we feel grounded and calm and that we're responding and not reacting to what comes up in life. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to give you a sample of three of the evidence-based practices that I work with people on. And the first one is called mindful awareness. What we'll do is a short practice just to clear our minds and get to arrive in the space and get present. We'll do work on gratitude and we'll do some work on a concept called awe, which means um, awe is when you have this feeling of being a part of something that's vast, where you can kind of step outside yourself. And I'll explain more of that as we get into the talk. But the takeaway here is that small practices like these are going to have a meaningful impact on your well-being. And I think oftentimes in life, we tend to wait for something big to happen and think that's going to really impact our overall well-being and quality of life. And what research has shown is that actually, much like with having like a physical fitness regimen or watching your diet, by doing mental positive psychology exercises every day, we really strengthen our minds, change our outlooks, and build ourselves up so that when these big life events happen, we're better able to get more value and enjoyment out of them and not have their benefits just kind of um, uh, quickly dissolve in a relatively short time frame, which then makes us think, wow, we need to go search for something else. And one quick point just to note about why circumstances don't have this lasting impact, even though we think they will. Like I said, such as the example of getting married. It's due to a couple different factors. One is there's a term called hedonic adaptation, which basically means that we adapt to our surroundings. So if anyone's ever bought a new car, probably after a few weeks, you don't think about it as the new car anymore. It's just the car that you have. You've adapted to it. That's become your new normal. And for humans, part of our issue is that we don't even realize we've adapted. We just sort of slide into this. The other big two things that really impact us are we don't have what are called objective reference points to base our well-being on. So we don't, in our minds, think, well, I have this very clear evidence-based reference point that I'm comparing myself to that tells me I'm on track and I feel good. What happens to us as humans is we're taking in information from all over the environment, friends, media. It could be from anywhere, and we don't even realize it. And it just throws off our reference point, so it makes us less likely to be satisfied and to maintain long-term enjoyment from something that's circumstantial. And the last piece to mention that I just love is that our minds tend to send us very strong signals that something is going to make us happy. And they're just wrong. And an example of this is if anyone's ever looked at sort of illusions, your mind will tell you two things are of different length when you know they're the same thing, same length, because you've, been told that it's a sort of illusion that you're looking at. So our minds are playing tricks on us too. And so again, so the work that we're going to be doing today and the work I do with people is to really develop more self-awareness to tap into um, what their innate, sort of talents and mindset should be versus letting the world and circumstances and just sort of the external environment lead us into default patterns. So very briefly, when I think of well-being, I think of it as something that comes from both how we're doing internally. So, what's our internal state? And that's how we relate to our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. And then also, how do we engage with the outside world? And so, um, that could be with people, nature, the larger world. So, it's really this dynamic between what's going on within us and how is our internal state doing, and then also how are we engaging with the broader world. And so today, what we're going to do is we're going to give you hands-on practice with both of those topics. So, as we age and what can happen as we move later in life, certainly roles shift. We may have been a parent, we may have been an employee, we may have been someone who owned their own business. We may be working a little bit less. We may, relationships change with our kids who may be grown up. Maybe we didn't have kids and we had a big friend network, and some of the friends are now moving into new living situations. All kinds of changes, roles, shifts in identity. But one thing that I think unites humans at all different age groups is this um, desire for connection and peace, and that we're all looking to live as well as we can in whatever stage we're in, with as much calmness and groundedness and inner peace as possible. And we're also all looking for some kind of connection, whether it's with another person, with a pet, with a partner, a loved one. There's just something human, irregardless of life stage, around having this type of connection. And so the practices we're going to do today are going to help us meet these needs and the experiences with steadiness and compassion. And so, what I want to start with today is a mindfulness exercise. And I like to do this because we're all human and we all have things that we're thinking about. Maybe we're thinking about something that happened to you earlier in the week. Maybe you're thinking about something that's coming up. But our minds are cluttered and it's hard for us to actually be present and focused on what we're doing at any given point in time. So what we'll do is a short mindfulness practice just to get grounded and to kind of arrive in the space before we move into the other exercises that we're going to do today. And what you'll be able to do is take this mindfulness exercise that we're going to go through, and you will have it as something that you can apply in your life whenever you're feeling a sense of stress, um, you're just feeling more reactive, you're not feeling grounded and calm. This will be a technique you can just deploy and use whenever you need to. And so, benefits of mindfulness, it reduces stress, it reduces rumination, it supports emotional regulation. The biggest thing for me is that it helps us live in the now and appreciate what's going on in our lives. We often, I think if we're living in default patterns, the analogy I like to use is we're basically imagine that you're in a movie theater watching the movie of your life going on screen and you're completely absorbed in it. And what mindfulness allows us to do is to pause that movie, take a step back, be present in our surroundings. And sometimes we wonder, what am I even doing in this movie theater? What's going on? So mindfulness it's a very powerful technique to help us sort of awaken into who we are and what we can be. So, what I'd like to do now is I'm going to ask everybody to just softly and gently close their eyes, and I'll lead us through this mindfulness practice. You can keep your camera on, but we'll close our eyes. And I'll give you about, 5 seconds, 10 seconds just to get kind of situated, and then we'll begin and get into the practice for today. So I ask that you take your seat with graciousness and dignity, and that you softly close your eyes and begin to tap into the natural rhythm of your breath. For today's mindfulness practice, we're going to take 10 deep breaths. And when we inhale, we're going to mentally whisper the word calm. And when we exhale, we're going to mentally whisper the word ease. So calm on the in breath and ease on the out breath. And we'll take these 10 breaths together, beginning now. So, finishing up the 10th breath, you can roll your head from side to side, maybe take a light stretch if you'd like. Softly reopen your eyes and rejoin the room, and we will continue on. So I just want to take a moment to pause, and I like to do this um, after I do mindfulness exercises and just check in with people and see, what did you notice? Were there any body sensations or notice thoughts that were slowing? There's no right or wrong experience, but if anybody has anything they'd like to share, you can put it in the chat. I'm realizing, Shoshana, because I'm sharing my screen, I can't actually see the chat.
I'm
Um,
happy to read out the chat.
yeah, if
Essentially.
anyone, thank you. If anyone has any just reflections they want to share, anything they noticed, it's okay if you didn't notice anything too. That's fine.
Someone said very focused on the here and now, a
Okay.
feeling of peace,
Good. Good.
being
And
present.
wonderful. And one thing I'd like to bring up that hopefully as we get through the end of today, but it's sort of starting and this becomes sort of like a wave, is that you leave today feeling just a little bit more calm and grounded, and that you feel just a bit more at peace. And so this is the first of three exercises that we'll do. And um, again, I love the comments that people had because uh, it's really nice when we have those experiences when we do mindfulness or positive psychology exercises.
Two people did say calm as you were saying that,
Oh, good.
and or calmer and calmness, and then concentrating on breathing in and out, slowing down.
Good. Yeah. The interesting thing about mindfulness is, I always find there's a lot of noise in our brains. I mean, that's just how we're programmed as humans. And what this allows us to do is really kind of strip away a lot of that noise and just focus on being with ourselves and being where we are in the present moment. And it just makes us, for lack of a better word, happier and more at peace. It's a pretty powerful thing. And so you can take this practice, 10 deep breaths, just saying the word calm in your mind and ease uh, on the out breath, with you, and use it whenever you like going forward. And I find it to be a very useful strategy for myself whenever I'm feeling at all scattered and not grounded. So now what we're going to do is I had mentioned that well-being is really about our internal state, right? What's going on within us, as well as how do we engage with the outside world. And so what we're going to do now is talk about the concept of gratitude. And this is really getting at that internal state that I mentioned. And so gratitude is having appreciation for things in your life. And that's really at its core what it is. It's a very intentional practice, though, and we're going to give you an opportunity to practice it. So, a lot of times, what people think is, um, I'm a grateful person and I have a lot of grateful, appreciative thoughts, which is wonderful. And I do want to commend that. There is a huge benefit that we get from being intentional and taking the time to actually write things down, or talk about it with someone where we're actually engaged in a process versus just having it be thought-based. And so, one big thing about gratitude that I find so powerful is it's really a foundational positive psychology practice. And what I mean is that if you have a regular gratitude practice, there's been a whole host of wonderful health and mental health benefits that you get from it. So, from a health standpoint, we've found that people with a regular gratitude practice have more energy. They tend to exercise an hour to an hour and a half more per week. They tend to sleep better because their minds are calmer. They tend to crave less sugary foods in terms of diet, so they're a little bit more mindful about what they're eating, and it does has been shown to curb some cravings. They tend to get sick less often. They tend to have lower inflammation. Just a whole host of wonderful outcomes from this one practice if you do it regularly. And it really does shift if you have a regular gratitude practice. It really shifts your mindset. So I work in a based on a psychological approach that is really distills down to see, do, get, which basically means how you look at the world determines the behaviors that you do, which determines the results that you get in life. And gratitude is a really wonderful practice for shaping our mindset and really driving a lot of wonderful change in our lives from there. So, specifically for in an aging context, um, there's a lot that gratitude can do for us. And, you know, as we get older, there's really a lot of value in honoring our life experiences. So, life has been a journey and it's had its ups and downs. There's been moments of probably tremendous pain, tremendous pleasure, um, meeting accomplishments, feeling like maybe we didn't get something out of life. So there's this whole tapestry of life. And the beauty of gratitude is that it enables us to honor our life experiences and all the learning that has come with that. Because, a full life really is based on how you were able to learn and grow and contribute to the world. Um, it also allows us to deepen connections with others, which, again, particularly as we get older, social bonds are one of the best things we can do for our health and just overall well-being, and to feel like we're connected to a purpose and to others, and that we're not isolated in the world. It allows us to integrate our past and our present, which I love, depending on what kind of gratitude exercise you do. So, if you, for example, uh, I'm going to give you an opportunity to write a gratitude letter in the next minute or two, and I'll explain more about what that is. But what this allows us to do is you may thank someone from your past, and in the letter, talk about how that relates to where you are currently. And there's this power of connecting the past with the present and seeing how everything is really connected and how one thing at one point in your life got you to where you are today. And also, gratitude is one of the most wonderful ways, as I mentioned earlier, to counter our brain's negativity bias. So, if we're focused on the things that we appreciate in life, our focus then shifts our neural wiring in our brains, and we get away from that negativity bias that we have, which is that, makes us a little bit more limited and restricted and less open as a person. So what I'd like to do now, this will be a reflective exercise, and I'd like to take maybe 7 or 8 minutes for this. And so what I'd like to do is ask you to write a gratitude letter. And what I want you to do is think of someone who supported you at a key life moment that you've never fully thanked, and someone whose influence still lives in you. So you still see the benefit of how this person helped you when they did. And so, what I'm going to ask you to do is to write a letter to them and tell them, what they did, why it mattered, and how it shaped you. Um, you do not have to share it with them. I have different points in time. I've done many of these. I've either shared them or not shared them. The research is very clear that if we write a note to someone and we share it with them, that we and they get big boosts to our well-being and stronger connections. However, we're also human, and sometimes the letter that we write is more for ourselves than for the other person. It may help us move on from something, it may help us forgive someone, it may help us. We just may not feel such a closeness to the person that we feel like we can be vulnerable with them. All that is fine. So what I want to do is have you focus on writing this letter right now. And if you feel so inclined, later you can share it with the person, either sending it to them or reading it to them or asking them if you can share it with them, however you want to do it. But for now, we'll just focus on the actual letter writing exercise itself and flexing that skill. So, I will set my clock. It's 11:07. What I'd like to do is maybe reconvene at 11:15 and we'll see um, you know, what people's reflections are from this exercise. So, So we'll take one more minute. I have 11:14 on my clock. Okay, and I'd ask that you finish what you're working on right now, and then we will move forward and do another reflection on on the exercise. So, just a few questions. If anyone is inclined to want to share some insights in the chat. I don't know if you've ever written a gratitude letter before. Maybe if you have, be interesting to hear about that experience too. Um, and just what was your experience like writing this letter? Everyone comes to today in a unique life situation, feeling unique feelings, and so I'm always interested to know, about people's experience with what they were writing. And I, the other thing I find interesting about this exercise, I often do it and I don't have anybody in mind often when I do it. There's been some times where, I sit down and very intentionally have somebody in mind, but I don't know. For me, I just find that I often do it more in terms of free writing and I just see what comes up. So today I actually wrote my gratitude letter about my aunt. And I don't know, why I was thinking about it, but she would come visit whenever I would go visit my grandparents growing up in Long Island. She would come visit and see me. And I remember in the early 1990s, showed up with a laptop. It was one of the original ones, and it was this huge, bulky thing. And as a kid, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it had a video game on it or something. And she used to take me and my brother out to do outings that were fun around Long Island. And she would probably drive way too fast in whatever car she had. And it always, these sort of tender moments, always kind of stuck with me. For whatever reason, they came up today and I wanted to express appreciation for them. And for me, it connected to how I like to parent with my daughter, which is, fun and consistency and love. So those were the sort of themes that came up for me in my gratitude letter today. So, anyways, Shoshana, if anybody has
Yeah.
any comments, I'd love to hear.
Yes, there's a few in the chat. So, one person said they feel deeply satisfied after writing the letter. Linda said, I realized a connection with other times when I felt most alive, i.e., when I was sharing a singing project with a friend where we also shared a lot of personal time together. Great experiences.
Wonderful.
Lainey said, in this age of texting and emails, etc., writing it down feels more meaningful.
Yeah.
And someone said, Linda said, I feel a deep heart connection with these friends, good memories. They felt happy. Sharon said that she wrote a letter to her mentor who is now deceased, so she will never get to read it. I still found
Wonderful.
it was a meaningful experience to express my gratitude to her. She taught me to write handwritten notes of gratitude that she sent over the years to me, so now I wrote one to her.
It's
So
beautiful.
lovely.
Yeah, and so I love the wonderful comments. I love the comment about in the age of technology. And you know, I think probably everybody's looking for ways to, take some breaks from technology, and the power of just taking some time and journaling and writing out notes of appreciation really is just so wonderful for our mental health and for taking that pause from technology. And there's just something about, even if you don't share it with someone, you feel more connected. Even if someone has passed away, there's something about being able to have intentional time where you get to say something to someone that you feel is really meaningful, that really just warms the spirit. It really grounds us, and gives us a sense of calm. So, thank you all for doing that exercise with me. We'll move on to the next one. So, this third exercise is around the topic of awe. And so, again, if we come back to thinking about well-being from the sense of it's how we're relating to our internal state, and we just did an exercise related to that part, which was on gratitude, and then also how we relate to the external world. That's where we're going to do an exercise now on this topic called awe. And awe is a feeling that we have when we encounter something vast, that shifts how we see ourselves or life. Now, some examples of this, I have some here. Nature. If you're in nature and you're at the top of a mountain looking over. I was in Boone a couple years ago, and I hiked up to the top of this mountain. I could see through Tennessee, Virginia. It was a couple states, North Carolina, and it just felt like I was just this part of the human story that was really amazing, and that I wasn't even necessarily inside myself when I had that experience. Music, if people, particularly if you go to concerts and you just get absorbed fully in the performance, art can do it. Moments of human kindness, deep meaning. If you have a child that surprises you, right, that can be a sense of a big joyous sense of awe. So, lots of examples of how we can encounter awe. The big thing for me is that it gets you to step outside of yourself and realize that you're part of this just bigger story. It could be spirituality, if you are a spiritual or religious person. It just gets you to think about how you fit into this greater human narrative and arc. And what happens when we do that is that, again, we get this feeling of calmness and groundedness, and we're able to just sort of realize that the struggles that we have, while they're struggles, they don't have to overtake us because we're part of something greater than ourselves. And so, what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit more about how awe and aging connect before we get to the actual exercise. And, awe really increases feelings of connection. It could be to the earth, it could be to others, but connection is definitely a theme that has been coming up through today's workshop. I mentioned that it expands our perspective beyond our daily worries, which allows us to step outside of ourselves and again feel connected to something greater. And it also supports meaning making. So when you have this experience of awe, you realize that as a human, you have what's called agency. You have the ability to connect. You're empowered. You have the ability to just be a part of the world, that you are not necessarily just on your own. And these are particularly important concepts as we age. So what I'd like to ask you to do now, and we'll take maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes to do this journaling exercise. I'd like to ask you to recall a moment of awe. And so this could be a place, person, a moment in nature, a meaningful life event. And I want you to reflect on what you noticed about the moment of awe, um, what felt larger than you, how it affected your sense of time and how you felt then and how you feel now as you're reflecting on it. So I have 11:23. Why don't we come back at 11:28 and we will do a short reflection on this exercise. Okay, so one more minute on this exercise, and then we will move into a short reflection. Okay, I'd like to ask that you finish the thought that you're working on, and we'll um, move on to the reflection. And so, if anybody has anything they want to type in the chat about, again, things that they noticed about their experience, were they surprised at all about the awe, moment of awe that they that conjured up for them? But sort of any reflections that you have on the exercise. For me, similar to the gratitude exercise, I tend to just have things come up. I like to use these as more open-ended exercises, just to see what comes up that I can like connect with on a almost like spiritual level. And so for me, what just happened was I was reflecting when my grandparents were elderly. They lived in Florida, and I was in the DC area. And I grew up very close to them, and I didn't get a chance to see them that much when they moved to Florida, and I was working in DC. And my grandmother was always really into technology. But as she got older and got sick, my grandfather actually sort of took the reins and was able to get an iPad and figure out how to use it and figure out FaceTime. And so I would call and FaceTime with him, once a week, once every 2 weeks. And he would always get on and have a baseball cap on. That was either where I went to college or graduate school. And we were able to just connect. And my grandmother would be on camera, and she wasn't necessarily mentally 100% there, but I could tell she was there, with us. And so for me, it just allowed me to step outside of myself and maintain a deep connection with them that, today, as I'm talking about it with you now, I'm getting um, emotional. So that was this exercise was a really powerful one for me today. So, Shoshana, was there any comments in the chat about people's reflections?
Nothing's come in yet, but we can give folks just a minute to write in. Um, Actually, Linda just sent that it was an overwhelming moment of recognition and appreciation of the vastness of the universe. It felt all-consuming and powerful, bigger than me. I can still feel it these 30 years later.
Wonderful.
I wonder if anything surprising popped up into people's minds, because kind of like you were saying, Jesse, for both the gratitude letter and for this one, I was sort of surprised about what came up.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like you said, it's fun to just sort of to go with it. So I wonder if anybody noticed anything surprising. Someone said the magic of a recent concert, how the composer created the score, how the musicians and conductor brought it to reality, and the emotional response it triggered was overwhelming. That's
Wonderful.
cool.
Yeah. And what I love about this is, you had that experience in the concert and were conscious of it while you were having it. But then as you moved on in life, your mind gets cluttered, you have other thoughts, other experiences. But by pausing and being able to do this reflection in awe, you're able to reconnect and tap back into that experience, which was so meaningful.
And someone mentioned that the first time that they went to the Grand Canyon, there was amazing beauty and massiveness.
Yeah. I think my wife's experience of awe with the Grand Canyon was I guess she as a child, she did the donkey ride down the canyon with her parents and sister, and they all thought they were all afraid for their lives. So that was her moment of awe. Maybe not the most positive one. I think I would have preferred to have just stayed up top and looked at it myself.
When awe leans into fear.
Yes, yes, yes. That is, one of her family's classic stories, which was I enjoyed hearing when I first met her parents. It's lived in infamy through their family history.
Someone also added that a feeling of awe upon completion and accomplishment coming from creating my art.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. And I love with that statement, it's you're creating something, you're producing something. You're an active participant. You're not just consuming. So that's wonderful. Okay. Well, why don't we move on? Um, and so I just wanted to, as we get close to the end, leave you with some takeaways, some ideas for how you can incorporate the exercises and the content that we talked about today into your life moving forward. So, um, you can always take a mindful breath before a conversation, especially if it's a conversation that may be difficult to have. But again, lean into that calm, ease breathing, and then go into the conversation and see how you feel. You can try just writing down one sentence of gratitude a day, so it won't take long. I'd recommend doing it at the end of the day before bed, and you can see how does your mind feel? How are you sleeping? Does it, allow you to relax and calm down before rest? You can seek out one moment of awe each week, which again could be, any of the topics we talked about today. Um, but just having that goal to once a week try to step outside of yourself and see something vast, I think is going to provide a lot of value. And then also sharing meaningful stories with others. This idea of connection has been woven in through all of the exercises and through people's reflections in the chat. That when we share meaningful stories and connect with others, two things happen. We see the importance of our lives, and we're also able to strengthen bonds, and both are important for our well-being. And so small doesn't mean insignificant, right? These are all very small, short practices. But if you do things like this every day, every week, you build up this sense of well-being, and it leaves you living in a much different way because you're living much more grateful and grounded and responsive versus just living in default patterns and feeling reactive, and maybe that things are happening to you from the world versus you shaping your environment. And so, couple takeaways. Mindfulness helped us arrive today in the space. Gratitude helped us deepen connection. Awe helped us expand our perspective. And so, the big takeaway is that well-being isn't something that you earn or you fix. It's something you can return to again and again through these practices of presence, gratitude, and awe. I have a slide of resources, and you also received all these slides. So you have the list of resources, but all of these things are books, podcasts, a couple websites that have wonderful information if you're interested in learning more about um, positive psychology in the field of flourishing. And I just wanted to see if there were any questions. I'm happy to answer anything that comes in through the chat.
Any questions for Jesse? Okay, I have a couple questions that have come in. One is, and this is specific to sort of the Jewish population. Do you think that Jewish people have a genetic predisposition toward negativity?
So it's a great question. I would just broaden it and say honestly, all humans do, and we didn't evolve it's funny to think society has evolved so much from when we were hunter-gatherers, but unfortunately our minds have not evolved with how much society has evolved. And so through time, I like to think about it, our default state is just to live more activated and more in a stress kind of response. It's just how we are programmed as humans. And so the negativity bias, it's an innate human thing. And I have plenty of friends and peers who are not Jewish who have some pretty heavy negativity biases. And so, I think our experiences, can shape who we are. The goal of the work that I do again with people is to try to get them to take a pause and a step back from being caught up in the movie of their life and to be more present and self-aware and to realize that that movie is sort of how they've been viewing things, but maybe not how life actually is. And so when we rewire our brain towards more appreciation, more perspective, things we talked about today, we start to live completely differently. And a lot of the things that were plaguing us before, there's sort of three things that happen. Either they do, but to a lesser extent, and we're able to recover quicker. Or, if something bad happens to someone, does something to us, we're able to actually look at it more in an objective way and problem solve versus just be completely reactive to it and overwhelmed. Um, so yeah, so great question.
I imagine there's an evolutionary, and maybe you said this, but there's an evolutionary basis to the negativity bias, right? Like if you're
Yeah, so
scanning your environment for danger, you want to
yeah.
remember what the dangers are. And
Yeah, so we have not evolved from the beast chasing us in the woods where we were trying to gather food and bring it home or all that kind of stuff. I mean, we live you know how often do people look at the news and feel like they're completely activated? I mean, the news is like the new beast chasing us through the woods, right? There's all of these stimuli in our environment that are causing us to live very activated. The issue is that the issue is not necessarily that we have a negativity bias, because in situations where we're really unsafe, you want to actually go into a stress response and to take it seriously and to have your adrenaline go up and to kind of go, okay, I need to get out of the situation. The problem is that we're living in that activated state much of our lives. And that's what I work with people on to turn off so that they can really kind of just settle into themselves and relax in their lives and move towards goals and connections that they want versus just living in these default patterns that are shaped by how activated we are.
I would imagine too, I'm not the expert, but that anyone just regarding sort of the Jewish piece, that anyone who has like a targeted or minoritized or oppressed identity might have had some of that negativity bias sort of confirmed in their lifetime, and so I wonder if that's sort of part of the question, right? Like if people have experienced traumas in their you know in their
Mhm.
family history or genetic history, that maybe there's more sensitivity.
Yes, and there's certainly intergenerational trauma. The thing I like to just kind of um, caution about is that there are individual differences to everything. So, I have a, a peer who on the surface you would think, well, they are not a member of a minority group that's been targeted, whatever, but they've had abuse in their past. And so people have their own experiences and stories that are going to shape this and bring it up. And like I said, just our environment is conducive to the whole marketing system in Western culture is to have us be activated and think, I'm not good enough. I need to buy this product. I mean, all this stuff is everywhere. It's impacting all of us. And the powerful thing is that we have the opportunity to rewire our brains away from it. It just takes intentional action, much like if you wanted to um, get stronger and you have a fitness routine, or you wanted to lose weight and you have you're changing your diet. It's very similar. There's work that we have to do, and then we're able to make progress.
I'm gonna just stop sharing so that we can see each other's faces while we do the rest of the
Yeah.
Q&A. There's another question here. Have you heard the concept of silencing the inner critic? It sounds similar to your teachings using mindfulness, a gratitude practice, and compassion towards yourself and others.
Yeah, yeah. And so, you know, um, again, I think when we're left to our default, because of this negativity bias, we tend to be much harder on ourselves and get into negative self-talk, and we get into these sort of loops. And the beauty and I think the joy of positive psychology um, is not to say that we all don't have inner self critics, that we don't have negative self talk. What it does is it says you as a human are able to learn, and you can be empowered to grow in a direction that you're not succumbing to this, that you can be aware of it. You can remove, have some distance from it. You can shape it, but that you are not, it's not the master of you. And I was actually talking to a family member recently, and they said they were talking about they're in their 70s now, and they were talking about how there were times in their life where they didn't get to accomplish things that they would have wanted to, and now they're realizing with wisdom that there's been this consistent negative self-talk and inner critic within them their whole life, and that's held them back at different points in time. And so again, these things are really, really powerful. And the field of positive psychology, what I find so meaningful about it is it's not saying, oh, those things don't exist. Don't worry about that. Move, it's not saying that at all. It's saying we want to accept them and observe them, but empower you to grow past it and give you skills to navigate when that comes up.
Hmm. One question, this is more of a housekeeping question, but will we be able to access this presentation again? So yes, just want to let everybody know that we have recorded today's presentation, and it will be uploaded to our website either later this week or early next week. And I will send out that the website, which will have the further links that Jesse has provided, as well as the PowerPoint and today's video. And then someone asked, do you offer any one-to-one or group sessions to practice these strategies, or do
Yeah.
others in the Duke Wellness Coaching Program offer sessions for these strategies?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll do a little just promotion about my private practice now. That's perfect. So yes, so I work with people one-on-one. I would work with couples. I would work with small groups. That works too. Um, and the way I work with people is it's either 4 weeks, 8 weeks, or 16 weeks. And what happens is each week we meet together. My model is learn, apply, reflect, integrate. So each week you'll learn a positive psychology strategy. So for example, we could talk more about gratitude. Then you spend a week applying gratitude in your life. It's like 10 to 15 minutes a day. Then we meet and we reflect on your experience doing this for 45 minutes a week. And we increase your self-awareness. We identify insights. We identify themes that are coming up for you. We identify how you're feeling. We identify if you noticed any physical benefits to this kind of work. And then because you've just spent a week doing it, have this habit that's created, and you're ready to integrate it into your life. And that may mean that you're sharing your experience with someone else, you're teaching someone else, you want to set a new goal in this area. So you're integrating it. So that's my model. And so what I do is, this is really applied psychology programs. I put people through a structured 4, 8, or 16 week program where they're developing these skills. And the very interesting and meaningful thing that I have been seeing over and over is that coming into week three, inevitably people show up and they feel like they're looking at the world completely differently, and they just tell me, because it's been a few weeks of applying these skills and getting reflections and integrating them, they just say it's like a switch went off. I noticed that I'm not attaching to things that were bothering me before, like whether I was questioning decision making. I had a friendship that I was struggling with. I mean, it's really profound. And so that's how I work with people. That's the structure of it. It's 4, 8, or 16 week programs, and it just depends on how kind of far into positive psychology you want to go.
Great. Someone did ask too, how do you integrate these practices into your sessions with individual patients, which you sort of just
Oh,
talked about, but if there's
yeah.
anything else you'd want to share.
So it's yeah, this is distinct. I think the biggest, sort of question I get, and because this is really distinct from clinical psychology, where someone may be trying to help you process or heal from something in the past. My focus is on your experience learning and applying these skills that we did today. And what people find is that they end up feeling just much stronger as they're going forward. So if setbacks happen, they're more resilient. Again, they're more responsive. They feel like they have essentially a toolkit to go out into the world to live that they didn't have before. And so it's 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks, and the sessions are all based on your experience applying the skill for the week. And I do it for a week because I want you to build up the new neural pathways and to create the habit and the skill of doing this that you can then draw on as you need going forward. And yes, it's a very joyful, powerful process. It's really wonderful.
Multiple people thanking you, Jesse. Very interesting presentation. Grateful for you. Thank you
Yeah,
for today's presentation. Somebody laughed about, I think, related to the Jewish question that there's Catholic guilt as well, right? So
yeah.
lots of every population, like you said, it's human, right? We all have a negativity bias. Um, and then do you work with people in their 20s or do you have like age
Yeah, no,
ranges?
so it's adults at any adults at any stage of adulthood. So I have worked with senior citizens, I've worked with young professionals, I've worked with midlife people, I've worked with people who are transitioning more into retirement. So it's any stage of adult life. And the beauty of this is what we're using is helping you apply science in your life. These are all science-based practices. What I've done is just put together structured programs with the practice based on using these practices so that it's digestible for you, easily implementable, and we're allowing you to implement what psychological science has said. These are the things people can do to live flourishing lives. And I've just sort of packaged it in a way that's um, from a behavior change standpoint and from a growth standpoint, you're going to get the biggest return from. And I think that's kind of one of the benefits I have as a psychologist and a researcher versus just being a coach is that I'm able to put together programs based on science versus just directing you through a coaching process.
Wonderful. Is there anything, I have a question just to add that you've seen people go through this process. Is there anything that's sort of an indicator of what will help someone be more successful in doing it? Like, is there
Yeah.
something that you've seen?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I get that a lot. So I guess the other thing to say is, if you're interested in having a follow-up conversation with me, I on my website, jesseerdheim.com, you can just schedule a free conversation, and I do these up front just to chat with people, and everybody understands what the process looks like, and that there's no pressure, and that we think it's a good fit. So yeah, the biggest thing, and I get this question a lot, what is there something that would prevent this from being successful for me? And the biggest thing I like to say is it's readiness, right? It's your readiness. Like, do you feel like you're ready to make some type of life change? Do you have the capacity to just spend the time each week doing it and meeting with me? And if so, then it works beautifully. If you don't feel like you have the time, or you don't feel like um, need to make a change, then your readiness is lower, and that's going to impact things. But when people show up and they say, "This sounds like something I want to do, and I have the time to do it," it works beautifully.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Any last remaining questions for Jesse? Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for attending today. Thank you, Jesse, for such powerful and interesting information. Even just getting a chance to sit and do these exercises is really has I think it will set us all on a better path for today.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope everybody leaves and kind of has a sense of ease that they can take with them through the rest of their day. Yeah.
and I did put your website in the chat, and then I will
Okay,
put now also our resource list in the chat.
great. And
And
yeah, and
oh,
they
go ahead.
have and they have if you sent the slides out, you in the first or second slide and the final slide, I have my contact information if you want more information, or if you ever want to chat.
Awesome. And we will be, like I said, sending out we'll be sending out evaluation and making sure to send out the recording from today's video if you want to share it with anyone in your life, or view it again, or if you missed part of it to get back what you saw. So thanks again, everyone. We look forward to seeing those who will join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is Meg Rader, a social worker, our adult day program director at the Gindis Center here. The program is The Power of Adult Day Programs, Care for the Whole Family. So looking forward to see those who will be there tomorrow.